What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the local podcast. I'm not sure why I keep telling you guys what episode it is, but in case you're keeping track, today is episode 31. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Jordan Hauser Digital. That is my video company here in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. If you and your company are in need of some video marketing content, you can check out greensburgvideo.com. There's a bunch of content out there for you guys to check out. And if you want to make a video with me, go ahead and hit that contact bar and shoot me a message. We'll plan something out and get you rolling. So check out greensburgvideo.com for all of your video and photography marketing needs. Or if you'd like to sponsor an episode of this very podcast, you can do so by reaching out to me at thelocal724.com and just head over to the contact page and fill out that form. So if you think your business is a good fit for the listeners of this show, go ahead and reach out at thelocal724.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a doozy of a show for you today. We are talking to Chad Taylor. He is the nurse that was on his way to New York City the last time we spoke. He was in his car. And today we have him in studio. He's back and telling us all about his experience dealing with the COVID-19 up there in the epicenter of New York City. So please help me welcome Chad Taylor. Welcome to the Local 724 podcast in 3, 2, 1. Chad Taylor, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, very well. I'm glad to actually have you in studio this time, as opposed to over the phone in the car on the way to New York.
Yeah, much different, different experience for sure.
Yeah, it was a little tough doing the interviews via phone over, especially while you were in the car and things like that.
Yeah, in the car I didn't even have Bluetooth or anything, so it was like on a junky Bluetooth speaker. I'm surprised it came out at all. So
no, it was good. A lot of people liked your episode, and I think that there was a lot of just admiration in things for you for going up and doing what you were doing in New York. If you want to give a recap for us, what you were going to New York for, that would be awesome, and then we can talk about what you experienced there. I think that would be interesting.
Okay. So I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for quite a while now. And early on when everything started happening, everybody remembers the horror stories, the nurses in garbage bags and, things from New York. And, it literally caused me to have a hard time sleeping, thinking about the patients. Cause I'm a nurse, it's really all about the patient when it comes down to it. But my heart just broke for those nurses, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to go and help. I wanted to provide service, to them, to give relief. And in addition to that, I also did a bunch of fundraising and collection of items to donate. And I got the most amazing, overwhelming, positive, great response to it. So I couldn't be more grateful. And I was able to do, a lot with that. And the difference between, I think, our last time and this time is actually having been in New York, though. I mean, I was on this, crusade, or, I was just on this high, I wanted to do this. And then, the things I saw and the stress that I went through and everything, and I don't feel any differently about it, but it's, my mood and my attitude are a lot different than the first time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, probably not knowing what you were kind of up against. I mean, you probably had a really good idea of what you were up against, you being a nurse and everything, but maybe not understanding it fully until you got there. It's incredibly selfless what you did, and to go up there and, put your life at risk, and then to, fundraise and get all these supplies to take to people that, you don't know or anything like that. And I think that, the world as a whole could learn a lot from people like you that, would just care that much for people that you truly don't know. I think it's very awesome that you went and did that. What, I think that's probably what everybody wants to know is what are some of the craziest things you saw there?
Let me preface that by saying the highest death rate in New York City was April 7th. I arrived on April 8th. The entire time I was there was a constant, roller coaster, but decline.
Yeah.
The entire time. So when I got there, the hospital was 450 beds of COVID. By the time I left, there was a half of a unit, so about 36 beds, COVID patients.
Okay.
So the difference in that amount of time, that 8 weeks. When I did get there, I was one of the first. I was the first group of traveling nurses that went to that hospital. I think there was around 80 to 85 of us in the first wave.
Wow.
First wave. They had 3 or 4 subsequent waves, but they only did like one a week. So as the cases and the hospitalizations started to decline, we also had an influx of nurses. So by the time I left, my unit had gone COVID free. We had a bunch of staff. So even in the 8 weeks, the rapid changes and how much everything changed during that time. But I was pretty scarred, I think, from the first couple of weeks because on my particular unit that I was on as well, I was the first wave of traveling nurses to go, but I was also the first nurse to be assigned to the unit that I was on.
Oh, wow.
So prior to me, they had no backup help. They were telling me stories. And it was a weird unit. It was used for ER overflow observation, kind of a little bit of hodgepodge of everything. So it wasn't really like a functioning hospital unit. It was kind of like this space that they had that they utilized for inpatient.
An auxiliary space of some sort.
Yeah. So there was 18 beds on each side. There was 36 total. And the nurses told me, before you came, we came in the morning and they said, you have this side and you have this side, 18 patients. I mean, as a nurse, that is shocking. I mean, nothing I've ever experienced in my life.
What's the normal amount? Like say, you're at work on a normal day. How many, I guess, patients do you typically care for?
On a normal day, non-COVID, I would say about 4 to 5 patients, and you get discharges and admissions, so that the amount of patients you take care of during a day would
fluctuate a little.
But your assignment, you should only have 4 to 5 patients at a time.
You had 18, so
I never did have 18, but
okay.
These are the stories that the nurses that were there told me. The most I ever had was 9, and again, as cases started to decline and nurses started to come in, that did get better. We did get to what would be a normal ratio under normal circumstances. Under these circumstances, I think that, that it would have been more ideal to be lower than that.
Sure. Yeah.
If we had the help, if we would take it, but, the first couple of weeks, I mean, my 37 minutes into my first shift and lost somebody. So, I mean, it just set the tone kind of for the whole rest of the time.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, man, I just got chills. I mean, that's hard to deal with. And, I've known a lot of nurses
Even
throughout.
As a nurse, it's
hard. I'm sure. I mean, like, I've known a lot of nurses like throughout my life, and, me, I'm always just like, oh man, I don't know how you deal with, getting to know people and then losing them. And, I couldn't do it. Could not do it. It's not for me. And, it takes a certain type of person to be able to handle something like that. Thank God we have people like that in this world that can, like, it's not just a job, like a 9 to 5, you punch in, punch out and you're done.
Yeah.
And you don't give a shit what you're doing while you're there.
Certainly not a job.
So it's just like, I can't really imagine what it would be like to get into a place, hear all these stories, and then it's kind of like, all right, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, so was it basically, it was a big room, like a giant room with 36 beds?
No, it was like an observation unit. So it was like double beds.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of looked like a regular unit. It didn't look like an open curtain ER or anything like that. It was more like a regular unit, but everybody on that unit was COVID, and you have to have reverse isolation. So they had these random, they took out the windows and had these like vents pushing the air straight outside as opposed to recirculating it inside. And so it was all modified. You're stumbling over all of the gear, you know, and especially early on, the thing that's really difficult, was not only was I'm not an ICU nurse. I never have been. I've never worked in ICU. I'm a med-surg telemetry nurse, which is lower level. So that's what kind of unit I was on. But we were getting patients that were waiting for a ventilator, that needed one. We were getting patients that were, I don't know how to say it, denied a ventilator, not likely to survive.
Yeah.
We were in the process of talking to the family and saying, we need to save this ventilator for somebody who is more likely to survive. I mean, those are the conversations we were having.
And that's tough.
And those are the type of patients, you know, I had 8, 9 ICU patients, and I'm a med-surg nurse.
Yeah.
And, you know, just watching them decline. And I never saw somebody go, and, you know, I've never seen that we were able to save one.
Yeah.
When they went. And it was pretty rapid.
It's pretty wild.
I mean, it's pretty bleak. I know I'm painting a really bad picture, but
I mean, like, that's kind of what people, you know, want to know, because, you know, it's really hard to get a true story from TV or the media or anything, because, like, you know, you've got one group of people saying that, you know, it's not as bad there as everybody's saying it is, and then you've got a group of people that's saying it's literally like The Walking Dead there. And it's just like, what, you know, while you're sitting, you know, Joe Schmo sitting in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, you know, you could be sitting there. I ran into a guy at the beginning of all of this. Let's just start with that. I was at Walmart. It was like one of the first days that they said, like, hey, you should be wearing masks. And I went in, had my mask on, and there was a guy there who was stocking some shelves. He was like a bread guy. And he literally, like, looked at me and was like, why are you wearing that? He's like, this is so stupid. This is fucking retarded, blah, blah, blah. And he's going on, like, saying all this stuff, like, and I'm like, look, man, I'm just trying to, like, do my part. They said wear a mask. I'm trying to, you know, do my part. And he's like, man, he was like, what did he say? He said something like the death rate has only 100 people in the entire world had died from this. And that it was like this big conspiracy theory and all of this shit. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, man, I cannot believe that people are so isolated from the rest of the world in their thinking that they could even believe something like that.
Right.
That's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised because I thought that a lot of people would ask me when I came back, was it really that bad? Was it really this, you know, is this all media hype? And there certainly is a degree of it that's you know, over sensationalized and all of that. But I mean, nobody really asked me that. I think they knew. I think that just the way I carry myself after this compared to before is different. I think that they don't need to ask. You know, and I hate to say it, and, you know, a lot of people ask me how it was, but I haven't really talked to anybody about it. It's really hard to do. So, you know, just remembering everything and, I lost track of what I was saying.
That's all right, man. I mean, like, I can kind of tell that, you know, like before when we talked the first time, you know, we've only talked like twice, but in the first time you really had this like kind of pep in your step. You really like had like a really positive vibe in your voice. And now I can tell this was really hard on you, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was war zone level.
Yeah.
It was tough. And it affected me. A lot of the reason that I even did this in the first place, and, you know, just to shed some light on that. I mean, I've been through a lot of rough things in my life, and, you know, PTSD level things. And I am fortunate enough to have, you know, a good support system, and I have all the tools in place to cope with that. And I know how to cope with that, so it was why I kind of thought that I happened to be in the right kind of mix of person to go, because I knew I could handle it, and I can handle it, but you know, it's still, even 6 weeks apart from being there, you know, it's still difficult to talk about and process and everything, and it will take time. And, you know, but I think the thing that really, and I said this on the last time we spoke, and I've said this on Facebook, on my fundraiser and all that, but to hear people, and I see it, I stopped to get gas on the way here, and I don't think anybody had a mask on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tested positive for antibodies. I can't get it or transmit it at this point, but I wear a mask because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Beside everything that's going on, at the core of it, you know, professionals and government and, you know, society is telling you that you need to wear that. And it's not for your protection, it's so that you get it. It's so that you don't transmit it to somebody else. So how, I feel like it's this, like how could you be so unneighborly that you wouldn't wear a mask to protect your neighbor from getting it? Or why is it this, why are you getting your information from somebody you went to high school with on Facebook?
Absolutely.
You know, go to the CDC website, read some of this, talk to people. I mean, and that's why I'm here, because I want to, you know, share the story and let people know that this could come here.
Yeah, absolutely.
New York was just the first wave, and I don't even mean first wave. I just mean it was one of the first cities to be that affected, and I think it will at some point go to all of these other cities. I literally don't think we've seen it yet. It doesn't even, and I haven't really worked that much since I've been back. I've not even worked an 8-hour shift total since at a time since I've been back.
Yeah.
3 days, I think. And even the people that I work with in the healthcare industry don't, give it as much. But I just don't want to see it come. I don't want to see it come to that in my backyard, I guess.
Sure. Dude, I understand. It's frustrating. My sister-in-law, she's a nurse, or she is a, she's going to kill me. I'm not sure exact her title. It will come to my mind. But she's volunteering outside of work to do testing and stuff down in Washington, D.C. And she put a post up, and she had a mask on and like all of, her face shield and all this stuff, double mask, all that. And, so she put up this post and just said like, hey, you should wear a mask and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So I put it up and I shared it, and I just said like, yo, this is, what my sister-in-law is doing, and, this is awesome, and, you should wear a mask. Like, if a professional is asking you to do it, you should just listen and do it. And, even people that liked that post and commented on that post and said, oh my God, we respect you, thank you so much. Not even hours later, we're on Facebook doing the exact opposite. Yeah. They literally were like, you're not going to tell me that I need to do this. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, we're not trying to like to steal your guns, okay? Like, we're not trying to like, take your liberties away. It's literally like, how I look at it is, put aside all the Republican and Democrat shit. Put all of that stuff aside. If wearing a mask could save your neighbor's life, or a friend, or somebody that you come in contact with walking down the street, or, in a store, if wearing a mask could save that person,
or yourself.
Yeah. Or yourself, you should just do it. Like, are you that like, irresponsible as like a fucking human? Are you that shitty as a person?
That's exactly
that you won't even take this minor inconvenience and try to help other people survive? Like,
even if you don't believe it.
Right.
I wear a mask, and I tested positive for antibodies. I don't really need to, because I can't. I mean,
right.
We don't know how it all works and all of that, but all the studies suggest that, I can't spread it or obtain it. So,
right.
But I wear a mask because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
That's all it comes down to. And I mean, you could get into all of the social aspects of what's going on currently. It's just the right thing to do.
It really is.
You don't get to infect your neighbor. You don't get to hate somebody because of their race. It's you just don't get to do that.
Right.
You have to like be a good person.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm not seeing. And right. that's what's like really shitty about this whole thing. It's just like, it's kind of funny. The president decided that he wasn't going to wear a mask. And then all of a sudden this turned into a Democrat versus Republican issue. And then just a week ago, here comes Mike Pence on the news saying that everyone should be wearing a mask. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump says, I'm all for masks. I think they're cool looking. He had to put his spin on it, to make it seem like he was kind of joking around about it. But in the article, he really did say people should be wearing masks. So where are you at? If you're the guy who's so anti-mask, you're stealing my shit, my liberties, all that stuff, where are you at now? The fearless leader has jumped on the mask bandwagon.
Well, yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing as a medical professional.
Right?
I think we get far more conflicting and confusing, and we have to wade through all of the information that's thrown at us, within the medical community as well. Not to mention all of the, crackpot theories that you see on people's Facebook pages and all of that. It is confusing, and I could see that, and I could see how not getting a clear message from anybody would make it confusing and would make it make you feel that you don't have to wear a mask or it's just, I think that even if you end up being wrong about it, at least you did the right thing.
Right. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I mean, that's a great way to look at it. I don't mind, even if, everybody's sitting there saying like, oh, these don't help. They don't do anything, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I've heard a lot of medical professionals even saying that. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. But at the end of the day, I know that at least I know how I look at people that don't wear masks. So at least those people aren't looking at me saying, this guy's a fucking asshole. Like walking through Walmart with no mask, just like coughing and sneezing all over the place. Sometimes in my arm, sometimes not. It's just like, it's absurd to see people just being like just savage versions of themselves. And it's like, this is like, it's insane.
Yeah. And it's, we are judging each other by it. People are judging me for wearing a mask in public, and I'm judging them for not wearing a mask in public. And it just paints this picture of, you say a lot about yourself without even having to say anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Based on your level of mask.
Yeah. I mean, like I have friends and stuff, and people I see on Facebook all the time of like, they're so against wearing the mask that to be ironic and like to make a statement, they wear these big bulky fucking gas masks and stuff to the store. I'm like, go for it. Yeah. I don't give a shit.
Hell yeah.
If you're wearing it, wear it. I don't care. You want to look like an asshole? Go for it. Like, do your thing. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, if the thing's on your face, I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's just crazy. I think the separation, the division and stuff that this whole thing has kind of created between like political parties is just like the craziest thing in the world. You know what I mean? As far as like supplies and stuff, did you guys have like, enough PPE? Did you guys have enough of that stuff?
I never went without. I'll say that. We did have to wear the gear longer than it was intended to be worn. Mm-hmm. And the fortunate thing, especially about the N95 masks, which are, the most important part of the PPE that you wear, we kept running out of them. So every time we got a new mask, you had to go down and get fit tested, and the mask that you wore for the fit test, you got to keep. So it was almost kind of fortunate because we were going through so many of them that you got one like every week. Plus they asked us to only get a new one every week on the floor too. So you got 2 a week, and I had little bags that were numbered, and I would rotate through them. I had 6 or 7 masks, so I had enough for about a week. And so I only wore a mask, I didn't wear it again for another week. So I had time to dry out and, it doesn't stay on surfaces more than 72 hours. So the gear was available if something happened to your mask. Mm-hmm. I had an incident where one of the new masks that we got, it was one of the best ones for filtration, but it was really restrictive, and I actually got like really lightheaded and sick. They almost took me to the ER, and I had to switch back to my old mask.
Yeah.
So, they gave me a new mask, obviously, for that. If something, you were able to get it, but it wasn't freely available.
Yeah.
You had to kind of explain yourself for it, but it's not like it was withheld or anything.
Right.
Like that.
That's
Certainly
wild.
overused.
So what, I guess, would have been the typical, like, wear? Like, how long do you typically wear a mask like that? Like, how long should you do that?
Should be single use every time you go in a room and come out.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
And we've had in the past, even in my experiences here years ago, if you had somebody in negative isolation, you could wear the mask, you could put it in a paper bag and wear the mask for that day. And put it on and off as you went in and out of the room. If you had that patient, you were assigned, you're going to be going in there many times. So I have seen that before because they are expensive. I mean, you can buy them at home. You used to be able to buy them at Home Depot.
Right, yeah. You'll never see those at Home Depot ever again.
They were quite pricey. So, I mean, I can understand conserving and all of that because of that. But, to wear a mask for a week in between, in theory, they were asking us to wear a mask every day for, I guess it wasn't 7 days. It was 4 day. I had 4 12-hour shifts. So, but to wear that same mask for 4 12-hour shifts, it would be particles by the end of the second day, I would imagine.
Wow. I mean, how did you deal with that mentally? I mean, like me, I know, so you're in like the epicenter of all of this. And there were a few times like I freaked out, like my anxiety, and all I was doing was just sitting in my house. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't get to the level of like even seeing anything happening around me or anything, but it was my anxiety enough that it kind of like, freaked me out. And like, I didn't want to go anywhere and I didn't want people coming into my house. I didn't want to go to other people's houses and things. And it just like, it was freaking me out. Like my mom came to give me a hug at one point and I was like, yeah, stand back. And she was like, that was tough to say. It was weird. Yeah. But like, what was your thought process, I guess, whenever you're like putting this mask back on your face?
To add a little bit to that though, your anxiety and everything, this was still going on before I left. There was about a month before I actually got to New York, and working in the healthcare field, we had patients that were being tested or positive or what have you. And I honestly think that the stress level here, the anxiety, was much higher because it was, it's impending doom.
Yeah, it was kind of like unknowing.
And the shock of getting there and it being reality as opposed to impending reality.
Yeah.
I don't think I explained this well whenever I try to, but just going from everybody on my unit has it, and not the way, I don't want to say they were nonchalant about it, but it was just the reality of it was everybody has it. So we're kind of past that anxiety phase. And to go from one to the other so rapidly too was difficult.
Yeah.
As far as wearing the mask though, I mean, what you were getting to get back what you were asking me, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I go off on tangents all the time.
Wearing all that gear, the one nice thing, I guess, was that we were all COVID. Everybody was confirmed COVID positive. So other than your gloves, we wore the gear. I mean, you really only took it off for when you went on break. You just wore it constantly. You could wear it from room to room because you don't have to worry about spreading it from patient to patient. If everybody's positive, it's more about protecting yourself. As the cases declined, and then we eventually, because of our proximity to the OR, long story, we ended up going COVID-free unit. They had to be tested negative to be on our unit for the last 3 weeks that I was there. So to go from one to the other was really difficult as well. And we still wore the gear, even though we were a negative unit, we still wore but you had to change between every patient. So, I mean, that was a lot. I mean, you kept your mask. We had to wear a mask you had to wear a second mask over top of your mask, and you would change that mask. So you'd wear an N95 with the surgical mask over top of it, and change your surgical mask, change your gown, wash your hands, re-glove, re-gown, all that.
Man, that's insane.
Just, and so that took so much time. This is all time that takes away from the time you get to spend with a patient, and nobody speaks English in New York City. That was one thing that I was kind of surprised about too. So the amount of time between the two, given that you have an overwhelming assignment too, and it really just led you to feel like you weren't the nurse that you could be or want to be or should be, or, you just felt, set up to fail.
Yeah.
From the get-go. There was no opportunity to be a good nurse to these patients.
Mm-hmm.
And you had somebody, kind of crashing, and that was your priority for the moment. And
Yeah.
there were times when I had two people crashing and you had to be with one, and your coworker was taking care of the other one. I mean, it's just happening so rapidly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to get back to like the ventilator situation, like, we kind of heard that on the news. It was like a thing where, you guys would have to kind of pick and choose, like, or triage people, based on, their ability to survive or not. Like, you obviously would help the person that is going to survive or could survive. How did being, a nurse in a normal situation that, you help everybody that is, sick or dying. How do you get into that mindset where you're like, basically, saying like, okay, well, we got to move on.
You don't get there ever. It's hard. Fortunately, I did not have to make those choices. That was, made by the physicians and the residents and practitioners and PAs. And, it was up to them to kind of have those conversations and make those calls. So I feel fortunate that I wasn't on, that pay grade, but
my sister-in-law's a PA by this time.
The PA.
You got me. I was just like, there it is.
Yeah. I mean, really, there's nothing I could say. Is you don't get used to it. No matter how many times you've lost a patient as a nurse, it never gets easy ever.
Right.
I've been a nurse for 110 years. It feels like, and it's never easy. And then in these circumstances too, when you have that professional level of guilt, like if I would have been able to spend more time with this patient, would they have crashed? And that's just a horrible. I had dreams coming back that I wasn't able to help my patients, and I haven't had that since the first maybe 6 months of being a nurse.
Yeah.
When you feel when you're just drowning and you don't know what's going on. So to have that feeling again, 12, 13 years into your career is quite challenging as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as seeing any kind of a cure or vaccine or anything like that, or anything that you guys were doing there in New York, like, is there any kind of medication that they were trying to help the patients with? Like,
we were doing the trials with the Plaquenil. We stopped the trial, so I guess that tells you the answer to that.
Right.
I was not involved in the study, obviously, so I can't speak to it, but I think that some of the things I saw were related to it, as opposed to a respiratory illness. It was stroke, heart attack symptoms that I saw.
Yeah.
Which have been associated with that. So, that's all I can really say about that. We did a little bit of the convalescent plasma. We did a study with that. I was able to, and again, I don't know what the results of that were. But no, I've not really seen anything that was a silver bullet.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a vaccine that's going to be a silver bullet. I don't know that, even if there is a vaccine, that it will have the, long-term effects that we hope.
The staying power. Yeah.
So like the flu, you have to get a flu shot every year because the flu, that particular virus mutates so rapidly that the virus from last year, you have an immunity to it, but it's a cousin of that virus. So you have to get a new new vaccine with coronavirus, it doesn't really work that way, but your body doesn't have that antibody response for a full year. So you still are going to have to get a booster every year. So it's going to be more like a flu season. Is from the things that I read, that's what I expect to see.
Yeah.
It's going to become ubiquitous. It's going to be everywhere. And it will eventually just hopefully turn into a flu season. And with that too, hopefully the virus weakens over time too.
Yeah.
That's ultimately going to be the end game.
Yeah.
My prediction.
Yeah. Well, let's hope. Yeah. I mean, as far as everyone, comparing it to the flu and stuff like that, like numbers and all of that stuff, like what is your take on that?
It's easy to make comparisons to flu as an explanation or as a comparison. But I mean, it obviously is very different than the flu and the way it works, and its potent, mortality, everything. I think it's just using the flu as a comparison is not. It's just to paint the picture or to explain it more than anything else. I don't think it. I don't know. I hope it doesn't become as erratic as the flu, because that could be.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you were there, I mean, we were definitely getting the vibe that you saw a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
But were there some triumph stories that, did you guys save some people? Did you send some people home?
Yeah, we did. And I was on a med-surg unit, so we got a lot of, I had a lot of really sick patients, but, especially as time went on, they became less and less sick. Mm-hmm. So you got to meet a lot of people. It was one thing that is kind of crazy is I thought of it while I was there. I was trying to think of the silver lining, but I did get to experience New York in a way that nobody's going to New York right now. So yeah. you could see it in the news or on videos of people filming it or whatever, but to actually be there and to see Manhattan as a ghost town was insane.
That's crazy, right?
At 7:00, you wouldn't believe and it was adorable. Like the first place that I stayed, I had to stay in 2 different places just because of logistics. But the first place I stayed was a very Jewish neighborhood. But at 7 p.m., all the kids would come out with their noisemakers. I mean, it was like New Year's every night. And that was like the only time they got to like do anything, make any noise. I mean, everybody lives in a small apartment in New York. So you're cooped up. You can't do anything. So
you got to get out there and shake it off.
Yeah. And I mean, it literally brought tears to my eyes the first, the entire time. It was touching.
Yeah.
But one of those times I happened to be in Manhattan. So it was a ghost town. Nobody was around. And you could hear this raucous, and you just didn't know, like, where's that coming from? It was just the most surreal experience. And to go back to your question, I was fortunate enough to have been able to raise like almost $10,000. I mean, pretty close to $10,000.
Dude, that's fantastic.
I ended up having to get a storage unit. I had family I took my carload of stuff there, and I had a family member bring everything else to a storage unit. And then on my day off, I would go up to my storage unit, fill my car back up, and bring more stuff in. So that was one of the highlights with my coworkers. Like, they always knew that when Chad was working, there was always a bag of goodies in the break room. Yeah. And I bought like several $1,000s worth of like cookies and cupcakes and stuff like that for like the entire hospital. And I did a lot of that anonymously, because one thing I didn't think of when I got there too was I didn't want anybody to treat me differently on the floor. Like as assignment, like I didn't want anybody to say, oh, he got a good assignment because he brought pizza last week or whatever. Like I didn't want that. So I did most of it without saying anything. Like they didn't even know where it came from. And I got to send a lot with that money. I found a place that would send, hospitals could, healthcare workers could request meals from a certain restaurant or something like that. And and then you could just go and pay for it to be delivered to them. So I got to do a lot of that. I hit most of the hospitals in my area. So
That's awesome.
Those were the parts, and that's what I went there for. And not, ultimately that's what I will take away. All of this other stuff will settle in time. And, I will only remember those good things. But, those were really the only things I have to hang on to from that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm like, it's insane to hear that, like, I even know somebody that would do something this insane, like this, just awesome. And so like, ambitious. It's amazing. As far as, those are the positive things that you remember. All the negative stuff, I know we talked about your brother the last time that we spoke and stuff like that. Have you been able to talk to him? And he's a soldier, right?
Yeah, he's a Marine.
So you guys have something to talk back and forth about, and, talking with him probably would definitely help you chill out a little bit about the experience, I guess. That's my guess.
Yeah. Everybody in my family has been incredibly supportive and listen and all that. But, he has a unique perspective because he understands what it's like to be kind of, and I don't want to call it a war zone. It wasn't a war zone, but, to be in a stressful situation of that magnitude. So, he was able to provide perspective and help with all that, I guess.
That's good. I mean, like, I know you probably don't want to, make the comparison, but I mean, I'll go ahead and do it. To me, I received a video from somebody, anonymously, that worked at a hospital in New York. And I saw the video, and what I saw was that there is not enough storage for the people that did get sick and passed away. Mm-hmm. So I did see that video. To me, that looks like a fucking war zone. That I can just watching that video, my wife couldn't watch more than 7 seconds of it. She literally turned around and cried and turned her head away. I sat and I watched it, and I just sat and I couldn't believe it. It's only a minute long. And I was just like, what the hell is happening? So, for that guy in Walmart to sit there and say, why the hell are you wearing that mask? You look stupid, blah, blah, blah. All you're doing is just scaring people. And it's like, nah, dude. I can't sit there and show the guy the video because I don't want this anonymous person to lose their job. I don't want anything like that to happen. So it's just like, there are people who are just completely and utterly clueless. And, that type of negative, it's the anti-support, whatever the hell you would want to call that, is really what is kind of hurting the whole fight,
right?
Against this. But,
and they're the ones that are going to bring it on us too, which is really coming from where I'm coming from, coming back home and seeing people not, doing what they should, and knowing what could happen, what could come of that, is, particularly, what's the word for that? Angering.
Yeah, angering. I mean, it's a slap in the face, I would say, to healthcare professionals, especially people who are out on the front line. There's different, types of healthcare, and obviously, I mean, you've got all kinds of different things, but the people who are out there in the ICU, in the emergency rooms, who are taking care of people, this is a humongous slap in the face to them for people that are walking around and just strolling on into Walmart, and they're just like, oh yeah, I have asthma, I can't wear a mask. And, or people wearing their mask in and immediately taking it off once they pass the door. Yeah. It's like, man, come on. You can't be inconvenienced for what, the 5-10 minutes that you're in the store getting something. Right. It's annoying to me. And
until I think that some of those people are just going to have to put a body in the cooler before they...
Sure. Absolutely.
They see it. They understand.
Yeah. I mean, when it hits close to home...
You don't want to do that. It's...
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's scary. I mean, my sister had to get tested just last week because, she is a counselor and she goes around and she has to make home visits. And, there's a certain level of a certain tier of client that she can't do telehealth. She has to actually meet these people in person. And I'm giving a real bad job description for my sister. But she does have to go to certain people's houses. And, somehow, some way, they had figured out that she could have been exposed to it. And, this was just over the holiday weekend that, my sister calls and she got tested last week. And then her anxiety was making her go crazy. She was just like, I don't know. What if I'm sick? What if I'm sick? That was heart wrenching because me and my wife and my mom and my dad are kind of sitting at my house and my sister's not there. My nieces aren't there. And I'm just like, man, this is what if she has this? Now she has COPD also. And it's if this is a respiratory thing, this could really fuck some shit up, And so luckily she got her test results back. She does not have it. And everything is back to good. But man, that alone was scary enough for me to I'll wear this mask wherever I have to. If that's what I got to do. If I got to sit in my house, I sit in my house. It is what it is. Everyone's bitching and crying about the bars not being open. And it's just I understand. I love to go and drink. I love to go hang out at bars and stuff. It's a wonderful time. But I will tell you, I have never made a wonderful decision when I've been drunk. It's so if I'm getting too close to people or bumping into people at the bar and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense, I mean, and this is coming from a guy who loves to do that. So
I just had this conversation with somebody as well. The things that you don't even think about that have changed, the ramifications of all of this politically, socially, economically. People working from home. I know people that never thought that they were going to ever do their job from home that are now being told you're not coming back to the office or closing the office, going to the bar, and even thinking further out. Telling your grandkids, we used to go to, your favorite artist used to come to your city and 50,000 people would go sit in a stadium and watch them. That's something, the things that we don't even think about or know that are going to be affected by this or have yet to see how this affects.
You have no idea what, the future holds and things. I mean, that would be nuts for this to be a thing that, is not normal anymore. Going to a concert or something like that. It's just wild. But I mean, as far as people working from home and things, I mean, we're already starting to see, Twitter and other big companies who are just hey, if you want to work from home, work from home. You're able to do it. The silver lining that I see, just being a business guy and stuff like that is that now we were forced into basically a trial of will working from home be possible? And now everybody knows that it is. And it's well, all right, so maybe these guys can work from home. If they, have a plumber coming to fix their house on Wednesday morning, do they really have to take vacation time or can they work from home that day? It's a lot easier. I think a lot of people are going to be happier with their jobs and things just because.
Right. Another fringe benefit.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. I hate to say that this brought any kind of positive, thing to the world, but it did provide us with some strange, like you said, fringe benefit of just kind of, well, you know what? This is kind of the silver lining. And that humans are wired for that shit. I mean, we always have to look for okay, this sucks, but it did kind of give me this perspective or something like that. That's just kind of how we're wired to think, I think.
Yeah.
But so did you have anything else that you wanted to share? Did you wanted to get into? I don't want to cross any boundaries.
No.
I mean, it,
open book.
yeah, it just, as far as I just want, I think, people to know that it is very real. I was privy to that video that I talked about, and I showed it to a few of my friends. Not everybody that I talk to, and I'll listen to people sit there and like say like, it's a conspiracy theory. This isn't real, blah, blah, blah. The government just wants to control you, take away your liberties, turn this into like some like fucking New World Order, like Illuminati shit. And I'm just like, I shake my head and I'm just like, man, I have a video in my pocket right now that literally would make you cry. Like, just be a human,
It's a burden to actually have the proof or to know the truth, because you see these people and it just...
Dude, the way I feel watching this video, I can't describe it. Like, I feel like dirty. Like I am like, ugh. Like I don't want to see
from the
this.
Video,
imagine. Right? From the video, so I can't even imagine what it was like to be in that environment for 8 weeks, like 8 weeks straight of just like, and you're a very positive guy. Like I get that from you. So like, were you when you had a day off or something, when you had to go back? Well, like, what was your feeling on like, oh God, I got to start like another 412 here?
It was, I had a very small hotel room and my days off, and it's funny because I can prove it with my step tracker. Mm-hmm. My days off, some of the days I had like 124 steps. I mean, that's like to your bathroom in a small hotel and back.
Yeah.
And I think maybe because, I had to get Uber Eats or whatever. I had to have delivery. So they would drop it off and I'd have to go down to the front desk to get it.
Yeah.
And I literally was down the entire day. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how I came across it, but something on my phone like alerted me to steps or something. And you can actually go through and look at the dates and tell what days I was at work and what days I was not.
Yeah.
Because the days that I was not was like nothing.
That's wild.
I mean, it just took so much more out of me than I ever thought it would have. And to say one more thing about, you were talking about the video with the cooler, that isn't even something that's on like my processing radar. And I think that nurses as a whole, especially me, we are very adaptable. So I was thrown into this place, this horrible situation. And, you just kind of hit the ground running, thrown to the wolves. And, we adjust so quick that really wasn't even something that I was ready to like talk about or anything. I don't want to say forgotten about it, but wasn't on my radar. Mm-hmm. So there's just so much that we process, I guess, as a nurse. There's so much that we carry that we don't even know. That kind of opened my eyes to that as well. And the way you described it, as I would call that a war zone, having to put a body in a cooler. There was one of the managers of the unit, the funeral home showed up to pick up a body and ask for, he had a fairly common name, I would say. Let's just say John Smith. So he asked for John Smith. And so he came down. He's like, what do you need me for? And he's like, oh no, it's a patient. And the moment, I talked to the manager about it, the moment that he saw a body laying there with the same name as him. And that's what they were coming to get. It was just a wow. communication error. But having that surreal moment, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes you just like, this could happen to anybody. This could happen to me.
Right. It humanizes it.
It really does. Man. Yeah. It just, it's something that, I just kind of have been like, I was real cautious in the beginning and everything. And we are still very cautious. Like we don't really go out at all. Like, since we've slipped into the green phase, me and my wife have been to, I think, 2 places. And we're very just kind of like keeping the kids, still at home. Like if I go to the store to get stuff, they don't come with us. I think we've taken them maybe 2 or 3 times, since this whole thing started. Time as a whole has just like been insane. Like it was March, it was St. Patrick's Day, and here we are in July, and I'm like, where in the hell did all this time go? Like, it was just so crazy to think like, oh man, are we going to be in quarantine, for my birthday? My birthday was in June, and we were, and I was just like, whoa, this is nuts. Like we had a cruise that we were supposed to go on in May, and back in March, we're sitting there thinking like, we'll be good. No, May came and went. It was gone, and like, it just, it really makes you think. And like, I had to take a little bit of a break from, social media, just because, there were people that I'm friends with and people that I respect and things like that saying things that are complete opposite of how I feel. And it was just like, whoa, it kind of opened my eyes. That's another silver lining that I'll talk about. It really opened my eyes to who people are, who are in my tribe and who aren't,
right.
And it's not necessarily like, hey, if you think that wearing a mask is worthless, doesn't actually mean that like you and I can't ever be friends or anything like that. It's just that we have a difference of opinion. And, if you come walking up to me and say like, hey man, give me a hug, you're not going to get a yes out of me. I'm going to be like, yeah, no, like stand back. But, relationships and stuff, they're going to change. Like even you walking up here, normally I greet you at the door, I give you a handshake, and I'm just like, hey man, how's it going? What's up? And it's not like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I've been to some business meetings since, we've gone into the green phase, and like handshakes are definitely kind of like,
pariah.
Yeah. It's like, nah, I do this thing where I kind of like, I got to put my hands together. Like I'm like praying, and I kind of like bow at you and nod my head. That's like my hello, goodbye, and thank you. That's like all of it. But yeah, man, it's just wild. When I heard your story, my wife actually brought your whole story to my attention, like back before we talked the first time. And I was just like, reading up on what you were doing and stuff. And I was just like, man, this is like the coolest fucking thing ever. And like, it gave me a lot of hope, I think, for, I guess, just like society as a whole. Just like, like there are people who, instead of succumbing to the doom and gloom and their anxieties and things like that, these people are going to step up and help us. Like that's what society needed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, it goes back to the quote from Fred Rogers. You'll always look for the people helping. There will always be people helping. And, that I guess my family, my upbringing, that's, I want to be that person at the end of the day. I want to be the one helping. I want to be the one out there making whatever difference I can. How effective, how much I changed anybody's lives, I have no idea. But, I didn't sit on my couch. And not that there's any obligation by anybody to do that. But I mean, I have comfort knowing that I did what I could do.
Yeah. Dude, and you did change lives. You impacted people's lives positively. Even just from the people that you worked with on shift, they knew that, you would bring something that would brighten their day, whether it was like a cookie or a cupcake or like, some pizza, anything like that, or just like paid off a tab at a restaurant or something like that. It's incredible. You probably have no idea how much you impacted people positively. I think that, that part is probably unknown and probably will be unknown. But yeah, man, anything else that you wanted to share? We definitely went a little longer. No, it's good. I knew that this one was going to be longer. I just said on the last podcast, hey, we're keeping these a little bit short, but this one was the one that I was like, I was leaving and my wife was like, this one's not going to be a half an hour. And I was like, fuck no, this one could be 2. But yeah, it's just like, I just, for me, my family, my group of friends, all that stuff, like the people that I love, respect, the people that are in my tribe, like I said, dude, thank you. Just from me, from all of them.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely, dude. I really hope that this gets easier for you. Like I said, I can tell the difference from the first time we talked to now. But yeah, dude, thanks for everything.
Yeah, no problem.
And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, there he goes. This episode was very different from all of the other episodes that I've done. This one really was somewhat like emotional. It was very touching. I mean, Chad is such a selfless guy. I mean, like, not only did he go up there and help and put his life in direct danger, but he also took supplies and he took money and all kinds of things to make his peers' lives easier. You know, the people that he was going up there to relieve, he took money and food and he really made their lives easier. He made them smile, you know, every single day. And, you know, that is an incredible thing, especially when you're in a position where your life is pretty grim. Like he said, this was, you know, one of the worst things that he'd ever seen. So along with this post on Facebook, you can see some pictures that I asked Chad to send me from his experience there in New York. It's really cool just to see what he had done when he was up there and the supplies that he took and donated to the nurses up there. So you can check those out on this post as well. Again, thank you, Chad, for being on the show. I had a great time talking to you. It was very informative. I hope it was informative for the audience. And he did say after the show that he is not done. He's not done supporting the nurses up there. So keep an eye out for some kind of other fundraiser going on to help with the nurses up there in New York or maybe somewhere else that is in need. So thank you guys for checking this episode out. I appreciate you all. Like I said, be a decent human being, wear a mask. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. Please give it a share, and we'll see you next week.